Watch this.
Former Democratic lawmaker and Republican candidate for state superintendent Brandon Durst now has his superintendent gig, just on a much smaller scale. During another raucous West Bonner County School Board meeting, it took an emergency declaration to get it done. The U.S. Supreme Court is eliminating affirmative action from college admissions. So how would that impact Idaho? Not really, because we kind of already did that. 4th of July is right around the corner, and you know what that means. Another installment of tips on how to be safe and sane with fireworks. But we're doing it the 208 way. Brandon Durst has covered a lot of ground in his political career, from Democratic lawmaker in Idaho to trying to be one in Washington to Boise School District trustee candidate to Republican candidate for Idaho State Superintendent to analyst for the Idaho Freedom Foundation to now newly appointed superintendent for the West Bonner County School District. A lot of ground physically and politically. That appointment was done by a 3-2 vote, which is still pending a state board approval. So there's a lot up in the air, though, with that approval. Joe Paris joins me now because, again, this is kind of have to go through a few more hoops. Not that it hasn't already been an arduous process to get this done. Yeah. What has to happen?
All right, so the process continues, Brian. Okay. That's what I'll say, for starters. The process continues. But yes, the West Bonner County School District, the board, they approved Mr. Brandon Durst as the new district superintendent. The vote was 3-2. It appeared, though, that the board chair wanted to go into executive session for the entire meeting, or at least the beginning of it, but that was prevented by a vote, 2-3, and it needed 2/3 majority to go into that private executive session. But let's start with the meeting itself, sort of a scattered public meeting. There seemed to be confusion and debate about a number of details and processes involving Durst's contract and a provision that would give legal protection to his wife if Durst is sued in civil court for actions he takes as superintendent. Maybe a case of flying the plane while building it. If you listen here, it's quiet because the West Bonner School Board sat quietly for extended periods of time while they checked details and facts of the matter that they were debating in real time. And eagle-eyed viewers, you may even notice that the brown shoe and water bottle behind that door you see there, now those belong to Mr. Durst. So he was sitting just behind that doorway, and he was there in case you were curious. Throughout the meeting, you might have even seen him pacing behind. Anyways, though, like other meetings on this topic, full and passionate crowd in attendance, and they were very vocal. Here's a taste of the climate in the room when tempers or confusion or frustration flared. The topic at hand was the length and renewal of Durst's contract. We'll take a listen.
I made the amendment.
So yeah, there's a lot of audience participation, and you can hear the room going back and forth with the board. Some in the crowd tried to compose the audience, trying to quiet it down. But long story short for you, the board voted to approve a contract for essentially 2 years with the understanding that it is not an automatic renewal and there needs to be a review of Mr. Durst at the end of the year. So by a vote of 3-2, the board said that Durst is our guy. However, something more to consider. One of the requirements for Durst to get the district job, or any superintendent job across the state of Idaho, is to have 4 years of full-time certified experience working with students while under contract with an accredited school. Mr. Durst does not have that full 4-year term, so he needs a special emergency provisional certificate through the state. For that to happen, the school board needed to declare an emergency. And one board member, Carolyn Barton, she spoke up saying that she didn't see an emergency that should allow for this.
I do not see a need for our district to declare a state of emergency at this time. We currently have a candidate and potentially a few others in the district that are certified and able to fill as an interim superintendent position. Furthermore, from the research I have done, the superintendent candidate that was voted in is not currently qualified or able to fulfill all the duties of a public school superintendent, even with an emergency certification. The direction of our board has turned into a fascist dictatorship with an agenda, which is far from our conservative point of view. In no way open to uniting the board, employees of this district, or community. The direction or agenda that has been kept from the members, not only from the board, but our community.
Very quickly after that statement, the school board approved the declared emergency and ended the meeting, and then they later went on to some budget meetings. But what happens next? Well, the school board and Mr. Durst, they're going to fill out this. This is an application to the State Board of Education for an emergency provisional certificate, and this will end up with the State Board of Education where they can approve the certificate or not. If they do, Durst becomes a superintendent with the implication that he's expected to catch up on those qualifications. Could be for 1 year, could be possibly for 2. We'll have to wait and see. Now, if the State Board says no, the process in West Bonner gets really interesting. And Brian, I spoke today with state officials about the application, this emergency application. They tell me that the paperwork, when I spoke with them a short time ago, has not been processed. They have not received it yet. It will be public record, so we can share that with you as well as the vote when it all happens.
Okay, Joe, so that's good to know. But what does Brandon Durst think about all this? Late this afternoon, we caught up with him from his new superintendent office in Priest River, and he admitted this appointment did not go as smoothly as he anticipated. My first question to him was why he wanted this job in the first place.
It's important that we can demonstrate that conservative principles work in public education. You know, we've already had some preliminary conversations this morning around the budget, and I'm finding areas where we could, you know, do things creatively or do things differently than we have before that'll allow us to utilize resources more efficiently or more effectively. And on the personal side, I think it's important to teach my children that you can do hard things, even when people are opposed to you, even things look difficult, that you can do hard things when there's obstacles in your way.
You talked about saving money and cutting costs within the district. How does that mesh with what you were asking for with your original contract?
So I think it's important to recognize that preliminary negotiations with contracts are supposed to be private matters. And, you know, it's unfortunate that the board or someone in the district chose to make that a public document when it was supposed to be a private document. Anyone who's done negotiations understands that you have to aim high to get to a middle level, and that's what I was doing. If I didn't know how to negotiate, I'd have no business sitting in the seat I'm sitting in right now.
Well, there you go. Well, him sitting in that seat he's sitting in right now is per state board approval, by the way. Brandon says he does plan to ask lawmakers to change the requirements for school superintendents this upcoming session, especially as they apply to rural areas of Idaho. Okay, so safe to say the last few school board meetings in West Bonner have been, well, anything other than a hot mess. Tough to say that. And things could be about to get messier. 2 of those who have voted repeatedly to put Brandon Durst in the super's office could soon be shown the district door themselves. According to the Bonner County Daily Bee, there's an attempt to remove Chair Keith Rutledge and Vice Chair Susan Brown from the West Bonner County School Board. It's still in the very early stages, but draft petitions with at least 20 signatures have been turned in this week to Bonner County Clerk. And the clerk sent me those recall petitions. Those signatures are still being verified, but they claim in this paperwork that Rutledge and Brown are not being open, fair, and honest, and they don't have the educational welfare of West Bonner County students as their first and greatest concern. They also say they both have a hidden agenda and have failed to fulfill their oaths to try and improve the schools and education in the West Bonner district. So how this works is the clerk is going to verify those 20 or so signatures, likely by tomorrow. Then they're going to start collecting other signatures, larger amounts of signatures. And if they can do that, there will be a recall election August 29th, or Rutledge and Brown could then resign voluntarily, either one. All right, you've likely heard about today's U.S. Supreme Court decision eliminating affirmative action from the college admission process, using race as a determining factor in getting in, no longer legal, in public or private schools. For too long, universities have, quote, concluded wrongly the touchstone of an individual's identity is the color of their skin, end quote. That's what Chief Justice John Roberts wrote. 5 other justices joined his side. Okay, so what does this mean for colleges and universities in Idaho? Not much of anything, really, because Idaho was already one of 9 states without an affirmative action policy. We already banned discriminating against or granting special treatment to any individual based on race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin in the operation of public employment, education, or contracting. That's according to Idaho House Bill 440, passed in 2020, where all applicants to school, a public school, shall not be granted preferential treatment on the basis of race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin, unless there are qualifications based on sex that are reasonably necessary. Hello, Title IX. So it's that simple. But we did reach out to Idaho universities for their response to this ruling. University of Idaho, capturing the situation in a short and sweet comment to us, saying University of Idaho does not use race as a criteria for admission. Admission to U of I is based on academic achievement. Boise State, pretty much the same thing. Boise State's admissions decisions are based on academic achievement, consistent with state law that preceded today's ruling. And that's across the board, according to the State Board of Education. None of Idaho's 8 public higher education institutions consider race as a factor in college admissions. So today's SCOTUS ruling Idaho already ahead of the curve, meaning it already kind of bends a certain way, if you know what I'm saying, because Boise State enrollment, 72% white, U of I enrollment, 74% white. You know, we showed you yesterday the massive number of volunteers and veterans making the Replica Vietnam War Memorial Wall possible. It is open 24 hours a day, beginning today, and it's on Sensi's front lawn in Meridian. The traveling replica monument is 3/4 the size of the real Vietnam War Memorial in D.C., but not everyone who wants to can make that trip back east. So instead, hundreds, even thousands of people visit the replica every day to see the names of family and friends who died serving in Vietnam. But Andrew Bartline shows us sometimes it's about what you don't see on that wall.
A traveling wall draws a lot of travelers.
Hanging in there.
The Replica Vietnam Veterans Memorial. It's stopping at 34 cities this year, but the base in Meridian, it's different.
What I would like to say is welcome home.
Jerry Carr's traveled through as many towns himself.
From Gardner, Montana.
Just to get here.
He served in '69 in Nam.
All
And
for the wall.
a guy of short stature.
All
but
to find the name.
big in heart and just his zest for life.
There's a crowd for a reason.
It does personalize it.
More than 58,000 names.
It's like every one of these people has a story, a family.
With each one
a little overwhelmed with all these names.
as meaningful as the next.
My dad served in Vietnam. He repaired Huey helicopters.
But he never saw the wall.
No,
Until
no.
now.
So this was his moment, and he was very quiet, and he didn't come to see any names.
And you don't need one to come.
Yeah, it's powerful.
There's a quiet crowd that instead brings the name with them.
They deserve recognition too, and that was part of the reason to bring him here with these comrades on the wall here.
Among the 58,000, you won't find Jerry's old friend.
William Hatfield, but he was known as Point. Point's beret with his favorite pins on there shows that he served in Vietnam. He was a colorful character, just as this photo would suggest.
He was a good man, too,
A whitewater raft guide, a bull rider, a hiker.
just
a
as
biker.
Jerry's writings would suggest.
Decades after his service, Point was stricken with a neck cancer. His doctor suggested that his particular cancer was likely caused by his exposure to Agent Orange. I say he survived the war and quote unquote beat cancer, but in the end, Agent Orange prevailed. And that's a big killer.
Jerry lost Point in 2015.
You can hate the war, but you love the warrior. And the treatment the Vietnam veterans got, especially coming home, it wasn't good, you know. But people, instead of blaming the war, they were blaming the warriors.
Time seemed to change that, and the wall seems to heal it,
It's a good way of honoring them.
even if it's a replica.
I had the opportunity to visit the wall in D.C. last year, and it was incredible.
Point and I together occasionally saying, hey, Where do you want your ashes if I'm gone first or you're gone first?
Maybe at 77, Jerry could still make the trip back east.
We've been in Montana 45 years.
But he's guaranteed today
Yes.
to make good on an old promise.
Promise to myself.
To pay his respects at the wall to the name you won't find.
I love you, brother, and welcome home.
Jerry was with a group of old friends who all made their way back here together. And I asked Jerry what matters most to him in terms of lesson passed down to younger people, the younger generation, people not alive for the Vietnam War. Myself being part of that group, you know, Brian, I have never been alive during an active military draft.
Right.
So just asking him, like, what are your thoughts? What do you think? And he says, well, you've benefited from somebody who served before you, whether they volunteered, whether they were drafted. And he said, you were likely a descendant of that. And, you know, my grandfather was drafted into World War II. And so whether you know it or not, I mean, everybody's kind of impacted and benefited from those before you. Those names on those walls, they all fit in there somewhere.
Yeah, and the fact that you can go out and see it as it travels around the country, even if you don't know a name on there, it does hit you. It's amazing.
A lot of people there said, I'm just here to check it out. I don't know a name. I'm not here for a name. It's pretty cool.
Thanks, Andrew. All right, if you've been with us for any length of time, you know on the 208, we like to approach the news a little differently. For example, we try to avoid the same old approach to the same old stories that come around every year. Planning to travel during a holiday? Every reporter is going to remind you to pack your patience. The temperature gauge inside a hot car? That's been done. Did you know there's a filter that needs to be changed for your air conditioner to run better? Probably. We can go back in the KTVB archives and find countless stories that say and show those exact things. 4th of July, no exception, especially when it comes to fireworks in the Treasure Valley. We gathered stories from 1997 through 2013, all done on fireworks safety, right around the July 4th holiday. Did you know they could be dangerous? If not, consider this your yearly reminder.
White flowers in purple and more crackling in purple.
When these colorful stands open,
Yep, it's that time of year.
Firecracker stands are popping up all over Boise.
We know summer is really here.
Can I help you guys find anything?
Arlene Linderer's fireworks stands are open for business, ready to serve the 4th of July crowd.
These are $5 for $1. You can get 2 more of these.
And the time of year, every year, for the warnings that come with them.
It only takes that one firework, that sparkler, that ground bloom flower, before that fun tradition of the 4th of July turns into a major disaster.
These tiny fireworks may look like harmless fun for the 4th, but when misused, they can cause dangerous fires.
If you plan on setting off some fireworks this holiday weekend, you need to be careful your fireworks don't start their own fire show.
Make sure you're in a safe spot. I mean, they can cause fires, especially when you're not being careful, which is where most fires start from.
And for most fires to start, you need fuel.
The wet spring has led to a lot of fire fuel that's just starting to dry out.
Dry fuel.
Our fuel levels this year are extremely dry.
Dry winds blow through high grass in the Boise foothills this 4th of July, a sign that when night falls and fireworks rise, trouble is sure to begin.
Especially with the grasses drying out the way they have been in the last week and a half.
And it is very dry, and you can see right now it's windy.
And wind. Dry fuel and wind.
All it takes is, for example, a little spark from one of those sparklers and a little bit of breeze, and you get a fire that's not only spreads very quickly, but it's very hard to contain.
If it's windy out on the day that you're lighting off fireworks, even if you're using legal fireworks, you need to be especially cautious.
But even those small sparklers can pose a big threat in dry conditions.
If only we could see how much of a threat.
Oh, here we go.
He lights a sparkler and throws it into some brush. Immediately, it catches the brush on fire. Now watch how quickly it spreads.
Notice the timer in the corner. Not a lot of time passes before this whole area is black.
With dry grasses, all it takes is one little spark from a firework. And suddenly everything around it goes up in flames.
Any firework can start a fire.
Yeah, but mostly it's the illegal ones.
Over the years, it's become a more and more problem for us.
As for illegal fireworks, there's a reason they are illegal.
They have a tendency to go a long ways and start fires out in the middle of nowhere.
Okay, so what is illegal?
Idaho outlaws any fireworks that leave the ground. Sparklers and fountains are okay in most places.
Anything that flies or explodes it tends to be illegal.
Anything that flies is illegal. Any firework that has a big display or shoots out sparks more than 15 feet, and fireworks that explode, such as M80s or firecrackers.
They can have sparklers, but they shouldn't go over about 15 foot in the air. They shouldn't shoot any type of flaming balls. So they need to stay on the ground, and also they shouldn't project themselves.
They are those that go boom or fly in the air.
In a nutshell, if they fly in the air, if they explode, if they emit showers of sparks,
they're illegal.
These bottle rockets range in size and price, but what they have in common is they're all illegal in the state of Idaho. Still, people are buying them anyway.
But wait, what?
It's a little flaw that's in the law, the state law, that allows for the sale and possession of aerial fireworks, but not the discharge of them.
Some of these ones, I need you to read this. It's an affidavit saying that you can take it out of the state of Idaho.
However, we know they show back up here in Boise.
And based on the amount of aerial fireworks you see over the city of Meridian or the city of Boise or any other city here in the Treasure Valley, you know that they're not taking them out of state to fire them off.
Know what else is illegal?
In the Boise foothills, everything is off limits.
We do not allow open flames at all. Certainly we don't allow fireworks.
But because of the fire danger, all fireworks are banned on public lands.
Fireworks are banned up in the foothills, but that's not stopping some people from setting them off up there anyway.
Which is why there's also a find out phase of fireworks.
In the past, Boise Fire did not have anyone out enforcing the ban on illegal use in town during the 4th. This year, they will.
Anyone caught misusing fireworks will be cited and fined $300.
Lighting the fuse could put you in the big house for 6 months and cost you more than a handful of pennies.
2006, it was a much different story.
We were given about one every 7 or 8 minutes.
Hanneman says more than 120 tickets and warnings were given out in a 3-hour period.
We do have fire inspectors out that will be out over the weekend writing citations. Boise Police Department, they're keeping a close eye on it also.
They can be subject to up to a $1,000 fine. And if they do start a wildfire, then they will be responsible for the damages.
Yeah, I know. It's a lot to remember.
Try not to have your kids wearing loose clothing because it could be set on fire.
But if you forget,
primarily people just want to get out and have a good time and enjoy the 4th.
They also want you to do it safely.
there's a good chance we'll be back next year
Just use common sense and be safe and you'll be okay.
to remind you.
Common sense is not so common anymore.
All right, let's get to your comments today on the stories we talked about today, like this one from Bill. Curious why such intense focus on West Bonner County's school district choice for superintendent? Well, Bill, it's because Brandon Durst is a former state candidate for superintendent, excuse me. It's a high-profile figure. It was an intense selection process, and it was all very interesting. And now there's a lot of locals, though, that were very vocal about this decision. And who knows, it may not even be over even yet. Has anyone asked the kids in the West Bonner County School District what they think about this hot mess? They're usually smarter than the adults, says Sam in Boise. Working on it. We do hopefully have a conversation with one of the board members. Can kind of help us explain it coming up tomorrow. Affirmative action was also eliminated by the voters in California many years ago, and they're quite more diverse than Idaho. However, the UC system has tried to implement other forms of, well, non-racial diversity levels. Hasn't worked. We'll see you tomorrow.